Congratulations on the new She-Hulk series, Jim. I don't know if I want to celebrate, Bruce. My new series seems like it's made by Tyler Perry Studios and not Marvel Studios. I have to wonder if this whole She-Hulk series is going to be Madea Goes Gamma. Hey, Kevin, you should have just used better production values instead of rushing out this project. Like my friend T'Challa here says, you should not have made it! You should not have made it! You should not have made it! I got a chance to take a look at Marvel Studios' She-Hulk series that's going to be on Disney Plus. And I have to wonder, did this series come out of Marvel Studios with Kevin Feige, or did it come out of Tyler Perry Studios? Because the production values on the She-Hulk are so bad, they just seem like something coming out of Tyler Perry's studios, like House of Pain, or one of his other absolutely horrible TV series. Now, the She-Hulk is a character who would do great on screen, and an adaptation of the John Byrne run on the character would be an absolutely fun and fantastic series. Unfortunately, because your Kevin Feige rushed this project out, he wasn't able to effectively execute on concept, and what we get is a bunch of crap thrown together on screen that doesn't really look impressive at all. Now, some are going to talk about the CGI, and I'll get to that in a minute, but when I look at the structure of the story for the She-Hulk, that's the thing that really frustrates me about this adaptation of the character. Now, the adaptation of Jennifer Walters here had no real structure as related to her story as I see it, and your Kevin Feige looks like he really didn't put a lot of effort into adapting Jennifer Walters' story, because what he presents on screen as her story is really flat and uninspired and has none of the heart of the original series, which was started out being written by Stan Lee, or the heart of the reimagination of the She-Hulk that John Byrne did in his Fantastic Four comics and the She-Hulk series that he started back in 1989. No, I didn't get any sense of this Jennifer Walters being a fun, vivacious person who actually likes being a She-Hulk. No, I never got any of that idea of this character really enjoying her powers or just enjoying being a superhero. No, in fact, what they do is they tell us that Jennifer Walters doesn't want to be a superhero, and that just runs counter to what the Marvel Studios is all about, adapting Marvel comics with Marvel superheroes in it. So how do you sell your character who is a superhero when you have the character saying that she's not a superhero? That's a critical question Kevin Feige should have asked, because you're already alienating your core customer base, which are comic fans, by having your character make this kind of statement in your trailer. Now, what really irks me about this whole adaptation of the She-Hulk is the fact that your Kevin Feige is really jumbled as related to the way he structures the character. Now, as somebody who has read the original Stan Lee series that came out in the early 80s, your Jennifer Walters really was this really shy and awkward woman who was getting ready to break her biggest case, which was against a mobster known as Lou Moxton. Now, this mobster didn't like the fact that Jennifer Walters went out here and got some evidence on him, and he was looking to take out Jennifer Walters, just as Bruce Banner was getting to meet her as related to getting some help for himself, because he was drifting from one place to the other during this classic Buscema run. Now, as your Jennifer Walters was hoping to help Bruce Banner, she was coming out to help him out. She gets targeted by these mobsters from the Moxton mob, and they shoot her and mortally wound her. And your Bruce Banner, hoping to save his cousin, he gives her a blood transfusion and leaves her at the hospital because he doesn't want people to know that he's the Hulk. And as a result, your Jennifer Walters is left in the hospital, and then the mobsters go looking for her, and that's when she transforms into the She-Hulk. This would be some very compelling story presented on screen. Unfortunately, your Kevin Feige wants to go in a different direction, presenting Jennifer Walters as some sort of awkward lawyer who wants to represent superheroes and then just chooses to just get the powers. He takes away the whole tragic aspect of the character and takes away the things that would allow us to see the character grow, and he just takes away all of those core elements that really are essential to Jennifer Walters to try to push the later Burn Run without giving us a character transformation arc that would make us care about the character. That's one of the big problems with the She-Hulk trailer. You don't really see a reason to care about Jennifer Walters or her story. You basically just see some sort of Sex and the City type superhero that has none of the layers or any of the depth that makes Jennifer Walters interesting. You don't really get to see all of the multidimensionality of the character because your Kevin Feige basically was so busy rushing out projects that he doesn't do his research on the character and doesn't do enough research to make us really see what's really cool about this character. I mean, what we see here is, oh, your Jennifer Walters is having a struggles as related to life, being this lawyer, and then we start to see the She-Hulk still having, she's just really awkward and uneven. It's just not really coming together the way it needs to come together as a story. And I believe, again, it's because your Kevin Feige is just rushing out too many projects. And when you rush out too many projects, what happens is you cannot really put together stuff that has any sort of quality. Because over the last 2 to 3 years, as we've had Phase 4, we've gotten a lot of concepts and projects put out at a very rapid pace. Unfortunately, many of those projects really have not been as good as they could be because your Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios have just rushed out so much projects the way Tyler Perry rushes out projects. Now, Tyler Perry is known for making some absolutely terrible material, and that's because he doesn't sit there and take the time to really assess his stories, and he doesn't really take the time to really take that second look at his stories before he takes them to the screen. And in many cases, he has a lot of emotional writing in his stories, and because he has a lot of emotional writing in his stories, and it feels very much like it's a first draft. And that's the same thing happening here with Kevin Feige. He's trying to rush out all of these projects because what they want to do is they want to go out here and try to what they call strike while the iron is hot with Marvel Studios. Unfortunately, as they strike while the iron is hot, what they're doing is ironically cooling down the popularity of their properties, because I would rather see Marvel Studios go out here and produce a project every 1 to 3 years that's high quality than rush out project after project and they're not very well done. And the She-Hulk isn't very well done because I believe a She-Hulk series, if they took the time with it, could be a fun mix of action and humor, and we could get something on the level of possibly Xena Warrior Princess or Buffy the Vampire Slayer if the She-Hulk was done well. Now, one of the things that kind of concerned me about this trailer was the fact that we really didn't get a focus on the bad guy, and that's a big problem with many Marvel projects. They really don't take the time to develop the villain, but you need villains to go out here and drive the conflict of the story. Moreover, you need villains to make us care about the character. So that's another problem with the She-Hulk, because they're so busy focusing on so-called strong women and women going out here and being these powerful females that the whole character has no personality and no real voice. and it just comes across as really flat and one-dimensional. Now, I myself have been writing heroines for years, like in books like the ISIS series and the E-Steam series, and when I go out here and write heroines, I want to put in action, adventure, and a little bit of humor. And I didn't really get that from the She-Hulk. I didn't really see that mix of action, adventure, and humor that would really get your attention and make you say, "Hey, I want to go out here and watch this." And I didn't see anything that would make anybody want to say, "I want to go out here and date Jennifer Walters or be her friend." I mean, this sounds like they were just trying so hard to make us like Jennifer Walters, but unfortunately, they didn't really give us any of the character traits that would make us connect with her or care about her in that trailer. It was just basically a lot of flash at the front, but no real substance, and everybody again comes across as really one-dimensional in this trailer, and the story's just really isn't there. It's just a bunch of random events that make you feel like, okay, yeah, it's a She-Hulk series that's here, but there's no real reason for it being here. It's just like Thor: Love and Thunder. Yes, we have a Thor: Love and Thunder movie, but I don't really see a reason for this movie being here. I mean, what's the purpose of Love and Thunder? That's the question I'm still asking after watching the trailer, and I'm now asking the question, what is the purpose of this She-Hulk movie outside of just being there to fill a box for Marvel Studios as related to completing Phase 4? I mean, is that all there is with the Marvel Studios? These characters are just here to be here, just to adapt. I mean, when you're telling stories, you really want to give people a reason to care about that story, and I'm seeing less and less reasons to care about Marvel Studios and their projects. Now, the thing that people are really upset about the She-Hulk is the CGI, which some say looks like PS4, and others say looks really dated as related to its design. Now, I really think it was a bad idea to go out here and put this bad CGI in this trailer, because you only get one chance to make a first impression, and you don't want to go out here and put something up that winds up alienating your viewers and winds up alienating all of those comic fans, because you won't be able to build anticipation for your show, and you won't be able to get those viewers to tune in when you have your launch date. I mean, that's the problem with the She-Hulk's CGI. I mean, she doesn't look really good compared to current CGI that we've seen in movies like Avengers Endgame, and she looks really like a step so far back that she looks like Fiona from 2001's Shrek. Unfortunately, Fiona in Shrek had a much better story and was a much richer character, and your Jennifer Walters isn't that rich of a character, so sadly, she's got bad CG, outdated looking CGI, and that's a real embarrassment when you consider that Disney is spending millions of dollars an episode on this She-Hulk show, and you're not putting the quality up on the screen. You would think a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Disney, if they're going to launch a project like the She-Hulk, they would go out here and try to put their best CGI on this project, because this is again part of their phase 4, and you would think they would want to put their very best CGI on here to leave a powerful first impression on viewers. I mean, the Vision in WandaVision looks better than the She-Hulk, and he's basically CGI, but the whole thing is that your She-Hulk is feeling just as artificial and has no heart. So that's another strike against this whole She-Hulk series. I mean, you took some of the best comics of the 1980s and one of the best characters of the 1980s, and you didn't really know how to put it together to make a fun and compelling series. That's a real black mark on your Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. You had the source material, you had the resources. Unfortunately, since you could not execute, you came out with the version of Madea goes Gamma, because that's basically what She-Hulk is. It's just Madea goes Gamma, and that's all I saw on that screen. And I saw a big embarrassment for Disney and Marvel Studios, because with billions of dollars and all of these resources, we see that they don't have much creativity, because they're creating stuff on the level of Tyler Perry, because they don't really want to go out here and take the time and have the patience to just put together a well-crafted series. Now, this was a mistake I had made myself back in the 2011 or 2012 or so with the ISIS series, and I was rushing stuff out, and then I realized I needed to stop and slow down, and I managed to get the quality up on my books so that the readers would have a good reading experience. And I believe Kevin Feige needs to do the exact same thing with the Marvel Studios projects, because the entirety of Phase 4 has not really had a purpose or a direction. It seems like he's throwing random characters at the screen, hoping one of them will hit big, but when you're building a universe of characters, you really want to take your time and think about who you're going to put in that universe, how they are going to fit in that universe organically, and why the viewers should care about those characters, because I don't really see much care being taken with the She-Hulk, and this big green Gamma turd is just showing how how Marvel Studios is getting crappy, and if they don't get their quality up, I don't really see Marvel Studios going that much further into the future with projects, because this is on the level of just absolutely terrible, and this is just, again, an embarrassment considering all of the money here. It just shows what happens when you have money and you don't have a lot of talent. Now, if you want to pick up my books featuring heroines on the SJS Direct imprint and in the SJS Direct universe, like the ISIS and the E-Steam series, and the books of the Smith-Dorella trilogy, and my vampire novel Eternal Night, you can find all of those heroines' adventures on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find their adventures on other online platforms like Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam, Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed, all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam, Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.